Okay, everyone, this is kind of like my own opinion as well as a response to Adel Aka, recently, who I do follow, and am subscribed to, uh, based on a few things. One of the thing, and this isn't just Adel Aka, this has been talked about in the Ruby fandom, both for a while now, and even more recently. One of the things concerning the ASOPs, this is also Vex Viewer, I've been noticing on Twitter, I think he might be doing a video on it, is plot armor. And I was just like, this plot armor comes from multiple things, but when I was sitting down thinking on it, I was like, for me, the main reason it seems like they got plot armor, besides the fact that it's written into the story, what kind of displays to us from the screen to us, the fan, where is the plot armor coming from? And as per my opinion, you can agree or disagree with it, is I think ability growth, like for instance, weapon and fighting style growth, semblance growth, how much aura they have. It basically comes down to how I've thought of it as the problem is like training arcs. Whether we, like in Volume 7, you see a training montage that absolutely does fuck all for the characters, and even ones in the past where you see like sparring between Pyrrha and Carden, who is just being written out of the story. Pyrrha is dead. Um, we're gonna get into it. Basically, I'm gonna go into each of the four main characters, because I can't be bothered doing Junior at the fucking moment. Like, they're just fucking annoying at this point. And if we're being honest, the show's Ruby, four main characters. As much as Jean wants to be the main fucking character, he's not. The four main girls are the character. And I'm gonna start with the character I think has had the least training, but had a weird plot armor moment in the Aesop's fight. So I'll try to be as fast as possible. That goes to Blake Belladonna. It's weird that for a character that comes across as like stealthy ninja, in the Aesop's fight, it honestly seemed like she took the most hits, and really hard hits. It looked like at one point her aura did break, but then we're just realizing, oh, it's just glittering, like it's still active. Blake's, and then there's the plot armor part. Oh, they're not in the right moment. That's why they captured Blake. They had the opportunity to hold her hostage, and then they let her fucking go so she can fight back. That's stupid. Even if they're not in their right mind, that's just fucking stupid. But back to the point, Blake, in terms of a character, in terms of her semblance, in terms of her fighting style, has not grown at all. At all. In 7 years, this character has not gained anything. Her semblance hasn't grown, she just creates shadow clones still that stand still and don't do fuck all. They don't have any new abilities. Like, in terms of things that I was thinking about, if it's a shadow, take a lot of inspiration from Naruto here. It's a friggin' shadow, much like a ribbon, which she uses like to grab things and shit. Maybe the shadow could bind people, like hold them in place. Maybe she can create multiple shadows, like Sun. Maybe she can just create one shadow, but it can mimic her, or at least attack people. Blake's doesn't do shit. It's just the same piece of shit that we saw at the beginning of the show. And this problem stems with all the girls. By the way, this second thing I'm bringing up, all the girls were too powerful in season 1. Season 1, 2, and 3, these girls were friggin' OP as shit. The moment Ruby left Patch Academy, which is essentially primary school, to go to high school, she was already strong as shit. So, training arcs really don't do much for these characters, but and Blake, in the Black trailer, is goddamn amazing. Is Blake in the Black trailer, besides the fact that, Adam picks her up and saves her life at one point, which nothing wrong with that. Any character could save Blake from getting hit. That's teamwork. Blake's really cool in the Black trailer. And it's kind of like when you see her in other fights, with the exception of Volume 7, she becomes much slower. For a ninja type character who should be high DPS, high combos, really fast attacking, she's become slow as shit. She's actually declined the longer the series has gone on, in my opinion. The second girl, who I think has not changed much and hasn't gained shit, and with Blake, the plot armor is her aura. Her aura is inconsistent. That I want to get out of the way. But that's an overall problem for the entire series. All the characters have an inconsistent aura. Aura is basically plot armor because it only breaks when the plot calls for it. It doesn't break because they have a certain amount of aura that can be displayed to the person. Like maybe they keep their scroll on them that's always displaying their aura slowly going down. They don't do any of that. There's really no way of knowing when their aura is going to break because it's literal plot armor. The second worst girl is Yang, because if I'm looking at Yang and I'm considering, because when she had the PTSD, she had the opportunity for a training arc. She could have learnt a new, because she's like unarmed combat, because her weapons are basically on her arms. She specializes in unarmed combat. We could have seen a new fighting style gained. Like maybe she starts to use no, because the problem is Grim, so she needs a really violent attacking mode. So having like submission moves are mainly targeted at humans. Who knows? The fact is, we needed something different for Yang. She didn't even upgrade her own weapons. She needed someone else to upgrade the weapons, even though the characters built their own weapons. So the characters are capable of building their own weapons, but they're not capable of upgrading their weapons because Pietro needs to fucking do it for some dumb reason. But with Yang, her main growth, this is why she's not at the bottom, and it's a really stupid growth, is during the PTSD she learns how to use her brain. Oh, don't get angry. Don't rely on instinct. Don't let your anger get the best of you. Use your brain. And I'm like, what? How is that cool? How are us, the viewer? So she gains this ability in like Volume 4, where she uses her fucking brain now. And 5, 6, 7. How does anyone watch Yang in combat and go, oh my god, this bitch is using her brain, this is so cool? It's like, no, we want to see her semblance grow, we want to see a new ability, we want to see new fighting combat. We want to know that after watching 7 years of this show, we want to see this character be something different. And she's not. Because the only thing she's gained is a fucking brain. And the weird thing, some people, I think someone on Kruby at a Q&A actually said that she's bad at kickboxing, like her weakness is kicking. And I just found that hilarious, because if you go back and watch the Yellow trailer, she actually, like, she's got great footing. Yang's got good footing, like she can read kicks and everything. It would have been interesting. What if she, instead of just having Ember Silica on her arms, she also had, she attached 2 more to her legs. And she learned not only boxing, but kickboxing. So she's all round, she can use arm, legs, and she can fire off shots from her legs or arms. That look fucking new fucking cool shit. Instead, what did we get? Well, we got JoJo's animation. Congratulations, she ripped off JoJo's. No one gives a shit. Um, and Yang's problem, her plot armor, her fucking. It's both aura in general, which is all the characters' problem, and it's her semblance. Does Yang get knocked out in a fight? No, she wins the fight. Why? Semblance. Her semblance is her plot armor, because as soon as you think she's gonna lose, she's gonna multiply her strength and like one hit whatever comes across her. So it's goddamn annoying. This one I had to think on, because Ruby and Yang are kind of like tied for the second position. Like, it's just, they're the best examples of character growth because we've seen growth. Actually, I'm gonna put Weiss at the top, then Ruby, then Yang, then Blake. The reason for this, with Weiss, oh no, we're going Ruby second first. Ruby, and this is me being dead honest, I would be a lot more hyped for this show. I would say a lot more good things about this show. I don't like the Ruby that we see in Volume 5, 6, or 7. I personally think the only smart thing that we saw in Volume 7 from Ruby is she used her semblance to get out of being handcuffed or held down. I thought that was smart. That's it. The Ruby I want to see that should have been consistent is Volume 4 Short Ruby, when she fights the gorilla in the town that's getting torn down. That Ruby should be the Ruby. Like, we should have had a training arc where we see Ruby trying to explain her semblance, explain how it feels to split off and reform, and whatever that cloak tornado shit does. It's like, oh, if I learned how to harness the pedals, put them together, and I can create like a pedal tornado with my speed as the catalyst. Hell, take inspiration from Bleach with Byakuya Kuchiki. His friggin' swords turn into pedals, but they're not actually pedals. They're just they're blades shaped like pedals that are reflecting sunlight, so they appear pink when they're actually it's sunlight reflecting off the blades. And he uses them in like waves, tornadoes and shit. Ruby had I think, in my personal opinion, I think she had the most potential, because if Volume 5, 6 and 7 Ruby was Volume 4 Short Ruby, I would be loving Ruby Rose. I mean, her optimism would still get to me, but she would be cool to watch. My favourite time watching Ruby Rose in combat is both the Volume 4 Short and the Red trailer. Those two just friggin' sell me on the friggin' character, but that character we don't see in the show. And my biggest problem, as I said, with her, the plot armor, the aura, my biggest problem with Ruby in general is it's been 7 years. We've been watching this show for 7 years. Imagine someone that's 13 years old when they start watching Ruby is now 20 years old. Imagine a 20-year-old is now 27 years old. This is a very long fucking period of time. She's the main character of the show, the overall main character. Nobody knows how her semblance works. That's her main power. This is like watching Naruto, not Shippuden, just watching all of the original Naruto, and they never explain how the Rasengan works or what it actually does. It just, you see it in the show, he creates this ball of blue energy, but they never explain how it works. In the show they do. He has a whole training arc specifically designed for learning the Rasengan. 7 years of a person's life. Main character, protagonist of the show, no idea how the fuck. They've never explained properly how her semblance works or why it works in specific ways. That's her biggest downfall. I have never seen a protagonist in a show who has never explained how their abilities work, where people just like, oh yeah, it does it. We don't know how, but it does it. I've never seen that. and it's mind-boggling. Weiss. Why is Weiss at the top? Because we've actually seen growth. It's pretty two-dimensional growth, but it's growth. We saw her early on, seasons 1 to 3. The glyphs, time dilation, the big sin. They forgot about time dilation. They don't want to use it because it's overpowered as shit. But we knew she couldn't do summoning. She could a tiny bit, but she's really struggling with the shit. Now she's mastered summoning. The problem with Weiss in the show is she's become Mrs. Summoning. She focuses in, like, they told the story properly, where I actually give them credit for this. Volume 5, it's like she becomes obsessed with summoning, and that's why she loses the battle to Vanal. She's like, summoning, 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 and she just got her ass whooped. It's like, bitch, stop summoning. You have other abilities. You gotta learn how to balance them. So it's them telling the story that she became obsessed with summoning, and now, like, when you see the Marrow fight, despite the fact that I think, Marrow's nerfed, they have to nerf the person that loses for the fight to make sense, which I really disagree with. But Weiss is using glyphs, summoning. She's using shit properly now. Weiss has had the most consistent upgrades, and perhaps the only successful training arc in the whole show. And that's weird. That's weird. I just think that the plot armor is tied to the training arcs. In terms of the training arcs, with Weiss being the only character that's actually grown and told like a successful arc of why her abilities have upgraded. 3 of the characters, Ruby's messy, it's all over the friggin' place. Her silver eyes are plot armor in themselves because, hey shit, we froze a Grim Solid. We use it on Cinder. It takes away her fucking eye and her human hand. She gets flashed in fucking Volume 7. Does fuck all. She escapes. And you're just like, wait, they lit up the whole area again, but she took 0 damage. Silver eyes are plot armor. Aura's plot armor. And this isn't hating. The way I'm describing it to you is my opinion, and my point of view is disappointment. It's not that I'm hating on the show, it's that I'm overall disappointed. Because if I've watched shows like Naruto, where he's gone Rasengan, they've given him the water balloon and he's got to channel it in order to make it burst so it has destructive power, then they're like, oh, Naruto, which nature energy do you specify in? Breaks the leaf? Oh, you're wind. You specify in wind. We're going to teach you how to put wind chakra that you specialize in into the Rasengan. So you get the Rasen Shuriken. Then we get the positive and negative from the Rasen Shuriken. He discovers if I can't use it hand to hand, I have to throw the friggin' thing. Then he learns about Sage Chakra, taking chakra from outside and bringing it into his body. He learns the pros and cons of that. It's Soul Eater. They learn abilities over time. They learn how to complement each other, work in teamwork. We see this in all other anime shows where people are having successful training arcs, and it's helping them grow. So when you see it in combat, it's not only cool, but it makes sense. Ruby, with Weiss being the only successful combatant to actually learn something over a period of time, and it's been 7 goddamn years, it's kind of like with Blake and Yang, I've given up them on being cool. Right now, they're just a shipping element. It's like, we're going to push the shipping, we're going to keep the LGBT community happy. Ruby would be cool if they had the Volume 4 character short Ruby. Should be cool to watch. And Weiss, they just need to bring the time dilation back, in all honesty. But the main problem with the show, the plot armor, is aura. Aura fucks up the entire show. Because one thing I would like to say, and I haven't watched Adel Aka's video, I'm gonna watch it after this. He put it in his thumbnail, and this sums up the entire problem, even with before fights begin, is we never see aura activate. It's not an activated thing. Like, if you watch Dragon Ball, right, or even Naruto, if Naruto's going into his Nine-Tail Fox mode, if he's going into Chakra mode, he gains an aura. Like, aura bursts around him before he switches into that mode. Super Saiyan, aura goes around him before his hair changes colour. We can see the obvious turn on of an ability. With aura, Oscar goes down to see Ironwood, but he never turns on his aura. We see him going down, we see him meeting with a potential ally, his ally, its actual ally, for negotiations in how a situation is handled, and his aura is just active all the fucking time. And I'm like, but why? We haven't seen you activate your aura. We don't see any characters activate their aura. It's just like, it's always on, like it's passive. But then they told us, Kruby has told us, that it's not passive. Ren was the info dump for that. It was in Volume 5, I think. Yeah, in Volume 5, Ren tells us, no, it's not passive all the fucking time. You gotta turn it on and off. It's something a character has to do. So perhaps make aura activation an actual thing where we see it activate. So that doesn't get rid of the problem of how much aura a character has, and then being able to display that to the fan, but at least we know when it's active and when it's not active. Because we don't see that. And that's just my thoughts and opinion on plot armor and training arcs. Given the amount of inspiration, like from Naruto, from Soul Eater, that I've given, it's clear it's easy to fix. Should it be easy to fix going forward, like Volume 8, 9, 10 going forward? That's the debatable thing. My overall solution to Ruby as a series is it needs to be rebooted and started again. The show needs to start with a clear idea on what they're doing going forward. And it's not really Kruby's fault when you really think about it, because this Ruby started off as a fan project. The first 3 seasons, as much as people love them for their fight animation, it's the show trying to figure out what the hell it is. It's changing things, plots forgotten about at certain points. The show was trying to get a grasp on what it wanted to do. It didn't know what it wanted to be. So it's not a bad thing to want the show to reboot. And you know what? Take a year off, sit down with the crew that you're officially going to hire to work on the show, and start writing down everything on what your goals are and how to properly implement it into what you're going to show the people. Then you get the show's probably still going to have flaws, because all shows have flaws, but they're going to be like not noticeable or smaller, little things that people can brush off. As it stands, even if you fix the show with whatever ideas I've come up with for training arcs and shit, it's too little too late, because people are still going to turn around and be like, if you do this in Volume 8 or 9, they're still going to turn around and say, it took you 7 years to fucking figure this shit out, and it was when you listen to the friggin' fans. And it's like, that's not a good way to fix your show. You might as well reboot it, start fresh, give it a new name. Like, don't change it from Ruby, but like look at Hellsing and Hellsing Ultimate. Just go Ruby Ultimate. That's Ruby Ultimate. New show, starting again, fresh. We're making the show better. People will love it. They might still shit on the original Ruby, but they can claim that the original Ruby is inspiration for the rebooted Ultimate. So Ruby Ultimate would go down in history as, oh, you know what, this was an actual good show, they redeemed themselves, it's so good to watch. it was inspired by the fan project that was Ruby and Monty's idea. That makes the inspirational idea look amateur, and people can appreciate it more for what it is. But right now, Ruby is pretending to be a professional show with a shit ton of faults. And the more the people say, the more the fandom says every show has faults, it's like every show has faults, but they either openly admit it to the fandom, they don't try to hide it, they just like, we fucked up, or it's minor faults that you can oversee. With Ruby, it's just massive. It's an amateur show pretending to be a professional show while properly not executing the anime tropes that it's using. That's my summary of it. It's not me hating on it. That's my form of criticism. I'm giving you ways to fix the friggin' show, and to me, it's just a bit it's disappointing, because despite the fact that I'm used to it, I still, everyone has hope in them. They have despair and they have hope. I believe that those are the two things that balance life when you live at it. And as badly as you fall into despair with a series that you're watching and people are like, oh, you should just give up on it, every human being is not pure despair. There's always going to be hope. You always got in your mind, I hope it gets better. What if they do this? You know, you keep having that everlasting hope. It's what gets you through life. As someone who's dealt with depression, anxiety, and suicide after my mum died, it's just like, the fact that I'm still alive says there's hope. With help, friends and shit, I got through that shit. That applies to the Ruby as a show. It's just like undying hope that it grows. And my undying hope is that it gets rebooted. That's my opinion. And yeah, hope you enjoyed it.